everyone, Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to the first vlog of 2025. That's right, it's a brand new year, which means we're starting fresh with a fresh new slate of books. I'm really going to try hard to read my series this year. As I stated in my goals video, I would like to get down the number of series I'm in progress in under 100. And I believe right now it's at like 151-ish. So that's going to be interesting because it means I would need to read like 52-ish series to get it under 100. But we all know I'm going to start series. So I also need to read enough series to cover those two. So that's going to be very interesting. Luckily, I think Phase Out Your Series-a-thon is massively going to help with that. I think I'm going to make some decent progress already in January. However, I've already picked up 2 books because it is technically right now January 2nd. Oops. Today was busy and I just found time to sit down and update the last vlog of last year and to start this one. So yeah, doesn't mean I didn't read. So the first one I picked up is Wish You Were Here. I'm farther than this. I was listening to the audiobook during wrestling. I don't know exactly where I am, but I'm closest to the end. I think I have maybe like 40 minutes at the speed I'm listening to it at. And this follows Harry, who is the like postmistress, and she's recently divorced, I believe. Oh no, a pending divorce. And she's got a cat named Mrs. Murphy and a dog named T. Tucker. And she realizes that people are starting to die in her town, and before they die, they're getting these postcards, as she has this habit of reading postcards that come into the post office, even though they're not addressed to her. And I really want to like this. One of the reasons I put this on my TBR is because I found out that Rita Mae Brown is queer and is very outspoken for being a defender of queer rights and women and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because this was written in like 1990. So I'm like, it'd be so interesting to see a cozy mystery from that time period written by somebody in the queer community. And I'm not loving some of the way she talks, or well, has her characters talk about other characters in the series. There are a bunch of characters introduced really quickly, and it's really hard to keep track of who everybody is. And then there are scenes told from the cat and dog's point of view, and they can talk and they can understand humans. And Cielo, no, you can't have my hair tie. And it switches to their point of view as they try to investigate these crimes. And you would think I would enjoy that, because one of my favorite tropes is animal POV. But I'm not loving how this is done. I'm not loving how they're talking about other characters and each other, and I don't know. Each just not clicking for me, and I really don't care about the mystery. The only reason I am continuing on with this is because I read a review that mentioned something that is discussed between the animals, and I'm waiting to see if I missed that, because that's how tuned out I was, or if I haven't like gotten to that point yet, because I'm curious to see how it is written. And if I find it, I will mention it. But I do not think I'm going to continue on with the series, because it's just not jiving with me, and I think it's in the like 2-star range. So that's kind of sad to start off the year with a 2-star, but alas, what can you do? But there are over 30 books in the series, so the silver lining is I would add this to my series started in 2025, but I've immediately DNF'd it, so my series in progress stays the same. So I guess this is a silver lining. And then the other book I picked up is Fourth Wing. And I'm on page 77. And this one I'm enjoying. So this follows Violet, who was hoping to be a scribe because she's not the most physically healthy specimen. But in her family, you are a dragon rider. That is what you do. So her mother forces her to go and be a dragon rider. And she has no idea how she's supposed to survive this, because again, she's not physically in the best shape, and the other people that are working to become dragon riders have no reason not to kill her, and like that's kind of allowed. So she's in danger, and because of her mom's position, She's made enemies who would love to use her to get back at her mom. There aren't a ton of dragons, so it's a very cutthroat competition to see who can get the dragons. And her thinking is, even if I manage to get to the point where I get to attempt to bond with a dragon, I'm, again, not physically as fit or as healthy or as stable as some of these other people, and dragons don't usually bond with unhealthy specimens. They want to choose the strongest, the brightest, the fastest, that kind of a thing. At least that's the impression I've been given. So I'm very curious to see what happens, because obviously Violet is our main character. Meaning I think she's probably going to survive. So I'm curious to see how she does that, because it's already been demonstrated how many people dislike her just because of who her mom is, how ruthless this competition is, and how dangerous it is to be competing to become one of the dragon riders. So I'm intrigued so far. And if I hadn't been tired last night, I probably would have just kept going with this instead of picking up this. But this is feeling very much in the 4-star range. So we'll see if this continues to go that route. Other than that, I have a completely wide open field of what I could read. I can read literally any of the 50 plus books that are on my January TBR. So we'll see what else I pick up. And I also wanted to mention, because I was really, really excited about this. So as you can see, the tree is gone. I took this down on sprints on the 31st because the batteries were kind of going, because I used battery powered lights on my tree because there is no plug over there. So there's nowhere to plug it in. So I just got some simple battery powered lights for the tree, and the battery, like I said, the batteries were going, and I wanted to put away my books, and they were just kind of stacked, and I needed the shelves that were behind the tree. So I did that yesterday while I was on sprints, and I got all of the books and I'm sliding them over because I had, you know, the A's over there and stuff. And I get through here and I go over here to this shelf, which is where I keep the last of my middle grade. And I use it, as you can see, kind of like a, you know, for a place to hold my cards and stuff for phase 10. And I have a couple of mugs on here. This one's full. I can't reach the other one, but this one is full. So I have a couple of glasses on here, and this one is full of pens. And the other one had a pen and a mint wrapper and my prompt. I told you I had a reward prompt floating around here somewhere that was combined two prompts. I found it while I was cleaning yesterday. You have no idea how excited I was when I realized I had finally found that prompt. So I have now added it to a cat litter container where I've got the other ones so that I don't lose them. So it's with the other one, so I'll have that for when I play phase 10 for January. So that was my big bright moment of yesterday, was finding that while cleaning unintentionally. So that made me really happy, and I wanted to share with you guys that I actually found it. But I believe I've checked in enough for this clip. I mean, we're approaching 11 minutes for a starting clip, which is a lot. So I'm going to wrap this up. And hopefully I will have a brilliant week, minus this, to start 2025. And I will check back in a couple of days and let you know how I'm doing. So it is currently 12:49 a.m. on the 4th, and I'm checking in because, well, I'm about to have a weekend full of wrestling, and I will not have another chance to check in when I'm somewhat coherent. I've legitimately just woke up from a nap because wrestling, I thought started at 4. It actually starts at 3, which is slightly better because that means it'll get done slightly sooner, but still, I'm going to be Cielo. We have a Cielo. I'm going to be watching wrestling until the wee hours of the morning, and then I'm going to do it all again tomorrow night, and then I'm going to do it again the night after that. So I'm about to be a little wonky sleep-wise. So I thought it was smart to check in. So let me update you on the stuff I'm in the midst of before I update you on the stuff I've finished. And also, if I'm a little off, that's because I'm still just waking up from a nap. The first is that I've started my reread of Mistborn. I am on page 76. And so far, I'm intrigued. Now, keep in mind, I've read this before. I read it in early 2019. I gave it 2 stars, and it put me into the biggest reading slump I've ever been in my entire life. So, there's lots of room for improvement. Basically, I was so new to my reading journey, and I had never really read any proper fantasy outside of middle grade, that I don't think I was ready for a book like this. I had only just stuck my toe back into reading. Not that I hadn't been reading, but during college, I basically exclusively read fanfic because I wanted worlds that I was already familiar with, because I was so fried from all of the stuff I was learning that I didn't want to have to learn a whole new world, a whole new cast of characters, etc. So I had only been reading new books for a few months at this point, and I just don't think I was ready for it. Since then, I've read both, The Reckoners and Skyward, there we go. I got there. Skyward, by Brandon Sanderson, and really, really enjoyed them. Plus, I just recently read the first Wheel of Time book where Sanderson took over, and that was probably one of my favorites in the whole entire series. So I decided to go into this reread with an open mind. I'm reading this with, at the very least, Omi. I think a couple of other people have joined in. If you'd like to join us, there is plenty of time. This is our book for January and February, because we're going to give ourselves 2 months, because these are chunky. And while I can handle a chunky book every month, I know not everybody can. So this would give everybody else a little bit time to, read this at a slightly slower pace if need be. And you can join us by just hopping in my Discord. The link is in the description, because we're discussing it there. And I'm intrigued so far. So I had always remembered the magic of the system, because we're following Kel and Vin. And one of the things they have the ability to do is allomancy. And by ingesting metals, they are capable of doing things that regular human beings wouldn't be able to do. I believe this was sold to me at the time as a, what if the chosen one failed and the villain won? And now we're seeing the aftermath of the villain having won that battle. So I definitely understand where that was coming from. But like I said, I'm already intrigued. I'm already interested in where things are going. And so I have higher hopes for this time around. So we'll see how this goes. Then I started Guilt and Genatan. I'm on page 124, and this follows Leela, who runs a coffee shop with her best friend Adina and helps out at her Tita Rosie's restaurant, and usually has some sort of case going. In this one, there is, I believe it's like the Corn Festival. Yes, the annual Shady Palms Corn Festival is happening, and her best friend Adina is found in the middle of a corn maze, unconscious, with a bloody knife in her hand next to the body of the wife of a mayor. So, of course, Leela is looking into things because she knows her best friend didn't do it. And I'm enjoying this so far. There's a lot of interesting threads that are being pulled in reference to this death. It is interesting seeing how Leela is going about this, because this one feels a little different, because normally Adina is helping her solve these crimes, not needing her help to be proven innocent. So that has definitely made things a touch interesting. She seems to be having an issue with somebody else who also cares about Adina, who is trying to figure things out, and I'm curious to see where that's going. And I'm really enjoying getting to know about the victim and trying to puzzle out who wanted her dead. So very much enjoying my read of this. And then the other book I'm in the middle of is Fourth Wing, and I'm on page 192. So this follows Violet, and she had hoped to be a scribe, but her mom basically said, our family does not do that. We're dragon riders. You will train to be a dragon rider. And Violet isn't necessarily the most physically fit person. She tends to be a bit physically weaker, so she's not expecting to survive long enough to get to the point where she might be bonded to a dragon. And because her mom is, I want to say, like, one of the commanders. Yeah, the commanding general is her mom. But there are people who would want her dead just because she's her mom's daughter, because they have a grudge against her mom. So she's also trying to stay away from them, because the rules are very loose in the Riders Quadrant. So you're allowed to kill your fellow riders at certain periods of time, or your fellow cadets who want to be writers. So Violet has a very, very uphill battle, and I'm enjoying this so far. I'm very, very intrigued by Violet. I'm really enjoying getting to see the world from her perspective, because this is a world she knows stuff about but never planned to be a part of. So it's interesting to see her trying to figure out how she's going to survive this on the fly, even though she doesn't believe she's going to survive. Although I'm going to assume if we're following her, she's probably going to make it through relatively unscathed, given that she's our main character. So I expect her to at least make it to the end of the book. It's possible we get a different POV for the second book. I have no idea, but I'm expecting her to make it most of the way through at least the first book. But it has been very fascinating learning about how one becomes a dragon rider, the stuff they have to do before they can meet the dragons to potentially bond with them. And I'm enjoying also learning about the different kind of dragons. So I'm super invested in this right now. I know that Omi told me, I believe there's going to be some spice in here, so I don't think it'll get 5 stars, but I think it's going to be a solid 4-star. So very curious to see where this goes, because like I said, I'm enjoying it at the moment. As for books I finished, the very first book I finished this year was Wish You Were Here, and I gave this 1 star. And honestly, if it hadn't been for the reviews, I would have DNF'd it. So this follows Harry, and she works as a postmistress in this like small town, and a body shows up one day in a very gruesome situation, and when a second body shows up, she, as the postmistress, likes to read postcards and realize they both got a postcard with a picture of a graveyard on the outside that said "Wish You Were Here" right before they died, and realizes that these are connected to the killers. And we also get POVs from her cat, Mrs. Murphy, and her dog, T. Tucker, among other animal characters. Like, we get to see them converse with other animal characters, and you would think I would like that, because I do love a good animal POV, but this just did not work for me. I wasn't especially a fan of Harry. I wasn't really intrigued by the mystery, and I didn't like the way we went in and out of being in the animals' POVs. I did not like the way some of the other characters talked about each other. Like, there's a scene where I believe the animals are talking about another cat in town and about how fat she is and how she needs to lose weight, which I didn't enjoy. There's an F slur on page, and while our main character does push back at that, it made me kind of uncomfortable. There is racism mentioned in here, because there's a character who does not speak to her son anymore because he's in an interracial marriage, and she does not believe in interracial marriages. And then, like I said, I was not invested in the mystery, so I was looking at reviews, because I was like, well, maybe it just gets off to a rocky start. This was written in 1990, so maybe it's going to be worth hanging around. And one of the reviews mentioned a scene, and I'm going to share it with you, and it may be considered spoilers, but I am going to share it with you. So I read this review, hearing about this scene, and went, okay, well, I'm going to stick around because I want to read that for myself. And the scene happens on page 242 to 243. So again, spoilers right now if you don't want to know this part of the book, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the plot as far as I can tell. So Miss Murphy is talking to T. Tucker, and Pewter, who is the fat cat I mentioned, it actually says in the description, because there's a cast of characters, it says Pewter, Market's fat gray cat, who when need be can be pulled away from the food bowl. Again, not loving the language, but they're having a conversation, and they're talking about how we mistreat the land, we've poisoned the rivers, and don't have good air to breathe, and all of that. And then they talk about how we're breeding too much. And it says, they keep reproducing. Do you know there are over 5 billion humans on the earth right now as I speak? They can't feed what they've got, and they're breeding more. Plus, they're breeding sick ones because they won't cull. Tucker's eyes were troubled. Sick in body and sick in mind. If I have a weak puppy, I'll kill it. It's my obligation to the rest of the litter. They won't do that. Do it. My God, they scream murder. And when they have to raise taxes to pay for the criminal acts of the sick in the mind, or pay for the increased care of the physically weak, they pitch a fit and fall in it. They just won't realize they're another animal, and the laws of nature apply to them too. Pewter's pupils expanded. They think it's cruel. You know, Pewter, you're right. They are crazy. They won't kill a diseased newborn, but they'll flock by the millions to kill one another in a war. Didn't World War II kill off about 45 million of them? And World War I axed maybe 10 million. It almost makes me laugh. I didn't much care if they die by the millions, truth be told, but I don't want Harry to die. So I just read that and went, oh no, just no. I want nothing to do with this. It was as bad as the reviews made it out to be. And I just went, nope. This series is not for me. This book was not for me. I wasn't enjoying it for all of the reasons I mentioned before. And then I got to that and was just like, no. So yeah, this is a series I technically started in 2025 and immediately DNF'd. Because I only gave this 1 star. And I'm not even sure it deserved that. Then I switched to a book I knew I was going to enjoy, and that's Just Beyond the Very, Very Far North. This is the second book in this series, and I gave it 4.5 stars. This follows a polar bear named Dwayne, who in the first book made his journey to the very, very far north. And in this one, there is a character that shows up that decides to cause trouble between Dwayne and his friends, and we see how the characters kind of deal with that. I really, really enjoyed this. I had such a fun time with this. I love these books. Like, there's only 2 of them, but I've loved both of them. They're such fun reads. It's got an animal POV, which I, again, do love. And it works for me really, really well here. I think this is a book that has a lot of teachable moments because you have this character who's trying to cause infighting between Dwayne and his friends and is sometimes successful in causing them to do things that may not be great. And it is interesting to see how the characters deal with that and how they deal with the aftermath of their actions. And I think that's highly important. This is just a cute little middle grade series, and I think I'm definitely going to have to get it for one of the little ones soon because there are a few of them where this would be the perfect age range to start to get them these books. So very much enjoyed my read of this, and I'm sad that there's only 2 books because I have a lot of fun with these characters and the kind of lessons that you learn as you read throughout these books. Then I read Rogue Protocol, and I gave this 4.5 stars. This is the 3rd book in the Murderbot Diaries series, and in this we follow Murderbot. And they are a Murderbot that's kind of bucked their programming and is hiding out because they're not supposed to be able to do that and is trying to stay under the radar because, well, the company that makes them would not be happy if they knew that one of their units had kind of gone rogue. And in the first couple books, I believe Murderbot started to know some suspicious things and has been looking into them while trying to stay one step ahead of people kind of wondering where Murderbot went. And in this one, Murderbot comes across a group of individuals and doesn't really want to interact with them, but notices some of the people there are being a bit shady, so ends up having a conversation with another bot that is part of the, I'm going to say family that is kind of living there because they treat this bot like it's family. And it leads to quite the adventure for Murderbot in this one. I really enjoyed this. I forgot how much I love Murderbot as a character and the way they think about things and the way they process information. And it was just really, really fun trying to puzzle things out with them and figure out what was going on. And seeing how even though they're not really supposed to have emotions or care, they're not the unfeeling, antisocial being they might want to be as much as they think they are. So very much enjoying my dip back into this series. And since it's a series I plan to catch up on, you can expect to see more of these in the coming months. And then the last book I finished is House of Elephants, and I gave this 4.25 stars. This is the 3rd book in the Witchling series. I did a reread of the first 2 books of Witchlings in December and did not manage to get to this one, but I have pulled it off in January. This follows Seven, who in the first book is waiting to get sorted into her coven, and unfortunately does not and ends up becoming a spare. And when she goes to bond her coven of herself, Valley, and Thorn, she can see it's not working, and if it doesn't work, they're going to lose their magic, so she invokes the impossible task, which, if they complete it, will allow them to keep their magic. So in the first book, we're seeing them try to become a coven and complete this impossible task, even though they don't really know. Thorn and Valley and Seven don't really like each other. And during that book, there is a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that leads to book 2, and the events from book 2 lead straight into here, so I can't really tell you what's going on in this one other than that we're continuing to follow Seven as she's looking into things that have been brought up throughout the first 2 books and continue to evolve in this one. And this was just another solid addition to the series. I really love Seven as a character. I love how she navigates things because it feels really authentic. Because she's not perfect. She does screw up. She does make mistakes. She's not overpowered and she's unsure of herself. And it is very true to how I feel a character would act. She's not quite 13 in this one, and I really do feel like that is captured in the way she behaves, the choices she makes, the interactions she has with other characters, despite the fact that she's dealing with all of these really, really big things. I like the magic of this series. I think it's fun, and I'm still just really enjoying my journey with this, and there's definitely some stuff brewing in the background, so I look forward to book 4, and I kind of want it now. I was hoping it was a trilogy just because then I could wrap up the series, but there's definitely some cliffhangers here, so there's definitely going to be a book 4, and I cannot wait to read it. I almost forgot. This is what I get for reading ebooks. I read an ebook. I read Murder in the Churchyard, which is the 3rd book in the Tommy and Evelyn Christie mystery series. And this is a historical mystery series that, well, follows Tommy and Evelyn. In this one, they are at church when a body is found in the cemetery, and it's kind of snowed in, so it ends up falling on Tommy and Evelyn to kind of make sure that their fellow villagers are safe, especially considering that suspicion is falling on somebody they hold in high regard, and they're wondering if that person actually did it or if they're being set up. I gave this 3.5 stars. This wasn't my favorite mystery. I feel like a lot happened way too quickly because I feel like it only happened over a couple of days, and I feel like it was just too easy for them to pull the pieces together. Like I said, it happened too quickly, and people were really willing to give them the answers they needed or give them the information they needed, and I don't know that it worked as well. It's also lost some of its charm by being in the village and not at their estate, because they're, I believe it's Lord and Lady Northmore. So they have this estate, and the first 2 took place on the estate. So we were missing a lot of the regular cast, because not that we didn't see people from like the village, but I missed some of the characters that we normally see that are at their home. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the 4th book. It didn't put me off the series by any regard. It just, the vibes weren't the same in this one, and it brought down my enjoyment, and I wasn't as huge a fan of the mystery, but it was an easy read. I got through it really, really quickly, and will definitely be continuing on. My plan is in February to put book 4 on my TBR in February to just keep that momentum rolling. So now I think I have actually updated you on everything. I've had a very interesting start to the year when it comes to reading. I'm reading pretty quickly. Like I said, we're only 3 days into January, because it's only like an hour into the 4th, and I finished 5 books and made really good progress in a couple of others. So very much excited to continue my week of reading. And yeah, I probably will not check back in with you until it's time to wrap this vlog up, because like I said, I have wrestling starting at 3 a.m. on Saturday. That'll be like 3 or 4 hours at least. So I'll be up till like 6, 7 a.m. Then on Saturday proper, after I sleep, I have wrestling from 8 to 10 that I would normally have on Saturday. Then I have an hour off, and then I have wrestling that starts at 11 that'll go for probably like 3, 4 hours. And then on Sunday or Monday, at this point I'm losing time, so it would be, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on Monday. Somewhere in that vicinity, there will be another show. These are all taking place from Japan, the weird time zone ones. So it's really on par for their time, like a perfect timing for their time zone. Less so for us here in America. But I do this every year, and it messes up my sleep schedule every single year. So you probably will not hear from me until midnight-ish on the 8th, hopefully. Because I will be taking that time to recover. And who knows what I'm going to get up to reading-wise, because there's going to be a lot of wrestling and a lot of probably being sleepy. So we'll see how everything goes, and I will check back in with you at the end of the week to wrap this vlog up. first week of 2025 is in the books, and boy, has it been a very successful reading week. I have read so very many books. This might be one of my most successful weeks to kick off of the year ever. And yeah, so let's dive in, see what I read and what I thought of it, because I've had some ups and downs. I'm going to mention quickly the books I'm in the midst of. So first is The Color of Revenge. I'm only 20 pages in. This is the fourth book in, is it the Inkworld series? I read Inkworld and its sequels a long time ago, and was wondering what a third book was going to be like, and if I remembered enough. I will say it probably would have been better had I reread things, but it does have a what happened previously, and we do get an idea of kind of what happened, and I think that's jogged my memory enough that I think it'll come back as I read. I'm only 20 pages in, so I don't have anything to say quite yet, but I'm excited to be back in this world. I've started The Bounty, the true story of the mutiny on the Bounty, and I'm on page 37. I'm reading like 15 pages a day, I think will allow me to finish the book before the end of the month. This is going to follow, well, the true story of the mutiny on the Bounty. I don't know much about it yet. I've heard it's slow, at least based on Storygraph. So we're going to see how this goes, but so far I agree with that. I think 15 pages a day will allow me to get through it without feeling like I'm going to make myself slump. Because of the slow pace, we'll see if the writing and the story engages me. Otherwise, I could see this potentially being a DNF, but we'll see. And then the other book I'm partway through is Mistborn, and I am on page 160. This is a reread, and so far I'm enjoying it. I don't think it's going to be 5 stars, but I went into it not expecting it to be, considering the first time I read it, it was 2 stars. But we'll see where this shakes out. Right now, I am enjoying it, and I don't remember exactly when I decided I didn't enjoy it the first time around, because it's been like 5 years. So we'll see how this one goes. Now, onto this giant stack of books I finished. So first up, I finished Guilt and Ginnaton, and I gave this 4 stars. I ended up really enjoying the mystery of this. I liked a lot of the characters that were suspects, which made it a lot harder because I didn't want it to be anybody I liked. So I thought the author did a really good job of creating these suspects and having them be people you might root for and trying to figure out what their motives are and wondering if one of the people you liked could have killed the victim. I really liked some of the tension between Leela and some of the other characters as they tried to sort through this because, like I said, it involved Leela's best friend, so there was a lot of drama there. And it definitely created some friction. I hadn't completely ruled anybody out, so I wasn't necessarily, like, shocked by who did it. But I do think it made logical sense when the reveal happened. And I don't want to give away my feelings on that because I don't want to be like, yes, it wasn't one of the people I liked, or it was one of the people I liked and I was so sad. You know what I mean? So I liked the way the reveal happened and the kind of way that came together. So all in all, this was another solid mystery in this series, and it catches me up, so I got to move this to my up-to-date shelf. Another series I got up to date on is Finding Bear, and I gave this 4.5 stars. So this series follows April, and in the first book, her dad brings her to this like research station in Svalbard because he's some kind of scientist. I don't remember exactly what kind, and it's after her mother dies, and she ends up meeting a bear she calls Bear and forming a bond with him. And in this one, she returns to Svalbard after hearing a bear has been shot to try to find Bear. I love this. I love how complex these books are. There's so much that goes into them. We get to see April's complicated relationship with her dad and how that plays out through this one. We see her unwavering faith in Bear and their connection. There were a lot of moments that were really heart-tugging, and I just loved going on this journey and also being reminded that what Bear is going through and what all of the polar bears are going through is this real thing that's happening, and this book is bringing attention to that through this slightly fantastical story because you really, really shouldn't approach polar bears. I mean, that is definitely emphasized throughout this book, the danger of that and how people don't understand their bond, but the author's note also kind of backs that up of like, they're dangerous creatures. Do not do what April did. But I really enjoyed the journey and the attention this has brought. And like I said, I just enjoyed the relationship with April and Bear and got really emotionally involved in seeing this next chapter of their journey. Then I read A Smoking Bun and I gave this 4 stars. Hello, Carlos. I did mention him earlier in the vlog. So this is, I want to say, book 18 in the Bake Shop mystery series. And in this one, Jules ends up on a ski resort. Yeah, a charming and rustic lodge, backcountry trails, and star-filled skies. So yeah, she's going to like a ski lodge. And there's a downhill dummy event where contestants strap makeshift dummies to skis and send them hurtling down a ski jump in hope of catching big air. And it's supposed to be this fun, festive environment, except one of the dummies ends up landing on top of a spectator and killing him. And he wasn't exactly filling everybody with the warm fuzzies. So there's lots of suspects for Jules to investigate. I really, really enjoyed the mystery in this one. It did not have too much Carlos, which is why it got 4 stars. But at this point, given the comparison I had this week, Carlos was not as annoying as he usually is, because I've certainly read worse. So I still really, really love the relationship between Jules and the kind of side characters that we've developed throughout this. And this is really one of the strengths of this novel, is how much I care about those relationships and how they kind of play into each of the mysteries, more so than the mysteries themselves. I don't want to say I wasn't invested in this mystery, because I was, but it really is the relationships and the dynamics between those side characters and Jules and the side characters with themselves that really keep me coming back to the series and make me want to keep reading, because I want to know what's going to happen to them and how they continue to puzzle out all of these murders. So another solid addition to this series as well. Then I read Is She Really Going Out With Him? And I gave this 4 stars. So this follows Anna, who is divorced and has 2 kids. She's working as a journalist, and somebody comes in, like an investor, to help out with their publication. And he kind of wants to take it in a younger, kind of hipper direction. And that doesn't really jive with what Anna's been writing. And in an attempt to kind of keep her job, she suggests that she does a dating column, but instead of going online, her kids will pick out her dates for her and she'll get to meet them in real life. And this will be contrasted by coworker Will, who will be going on dates that he finds via like the internet, online dating apps, that kind of thing. And so we see Anna go on these dates and start to write her column along with Will, who's writing his, and seeing how things develop from there. So I did not enjoy the romance in this book. But Chris, you say you gave it 4 stars. The reason I gave it 4 stars is because Anna's journey throughout this is amazing. I loved seeing how each of the dates she went on kind of changed her as a person, how they really started helping her grow, because she had kind of gotten into this rut in her post-divorce life and had become very much just kind of stuck in her ways and really about her kids, and how each of these dates kind of forced her to get a little bit more out of her shell and a little bit more out of her comfort zone and start to reconnect with the person who Anna is and not just Anna the mom. And so I really, really love that. I love some of the relationships she develops during this book. I just wasn't necessarily a fan of the romance. There were parts of it I really enjoyed, but I did not like the way the book ended. I was not a fan of that, and I think I would have enjoyed it more had it ended slightly differently, and I can't tell you that without, spoilers. But like I said, I enjoyed the bulk of the book, and I think I would have enjoyed it more had it not been a romance and had just been focused on Anna doing these columns, going on these dates, and kind of rediscovering who she is besides her kid's mom. So I definitely think I'll read more from Sophie Cousins in the future, because I really enjoyed my time with this book. I had a lot of fun with it. But hopefully when I do, I'll like the romance in that one better than I did in this one. Then I finished Fourth Wing, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I knew it wasn't going to get 5 because of the spicy scenes, but I really did enjoy everything else about this book. I loved Violet's journey. I liked her growth as a character. I really loved getting to see the Writer's Quadrant and all that went into that. I loved the dragons. The dragons are fantastic. I had a really, really, really good time with them. I quite loved seeing their bonds with their riders and how that is reflected throughout the story. Because even though Violet is our main character, we still get to see the demonstration of the way these dragons bond with other characters from her point of view. And I think it is amazing, that bond, and I just thought that was really interesting. I loved getting to see the, what are they called? I guess powers that they develop, because each rider, once they bond with their dragon, gets some sort of power related to them and their dragons. It's the power is not the word. I can't remember the word that is used. My brain is still a little mushy from all the wrestling and the lack of sleep, but I really liked seeing all of the different powers and how they kind of manifested. And I don't know, I had a really, really, really good time with this. And the ending was just amazing. Like, I had so many emotions. My emotions were all over the place. Highs, lows, and everything in between. And I'm just very excited for book 2, even though I know from everything I've heard that book 2 is nowhere near as good as book 1. But there is a cliffhanger at the end of book 2 that will make me immediately want to pick up book 3. So I'm going to try to time it so that I read book 2 at the end of February, and then hopefully be able to pick up book 3 in the beginning of March so that I can keep that momentum. But we'll see. We'll see how book 2 goes. But I really, really enjoyed book 1, and I'm glad I ended up giving this a try. So thank you, Omi, for pushing me to grab it. Then I did my reread of River of Secrets, and I gave this 4 stars, which is slightly lower than when I first read it. This follows pandas who are separated in a great flood. There are 3 of them, and they don't know that the others exist. They were born during this great flood, so they never knew the other existed. And there is a prophecy that is going to bring the 3 of them back together. And we're seeing the continuation of each of their journeys in this one. And I enjoyed it. Again, I don't enjoy it as much as Warriors, but I am enjoying it so far. I liked the development we saw with the characters in this one, especially Ghost. I feel like he really grows in this one, and we see that demonstrated. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that growth plays into book 3, because there's a lot of pieces that are moving right now. There was also a thing I had forgotten that is making me wonder what's going to happen in book 3. Again, I can't be any more specific without spoiling things, but there is a thing that happens, and it makes me definitely wonder where things are going in book 3 and how that is going to play out. So enjoying my reread. And now I believe I get to go into fresh territory, because I don't think I ever read book 3, so that should be interesting, and I look forward to getting to that later this month. I almost read it today. Instead, I read Voyage of the Damned, and I gave this 1.25 stars. It's so pretty, you guys. I'm so sad. Like, look, it's got pretty end papers, and it's pretty with its little rainbow, and I did not like this book. It started off so promising. So this follows Ganymedes, who is usually referred to as D. And he is one of the 12 blessed. As each province has a member of their province that is blessed, it's passed down through bloodlines. It's usually the heir, and they're getting ready to go on a journey to the sacred goddess's mountain. And this is a journey that all blessed take together at some point. And most times you don't know what the other province's blessings are. But D is on the ship, and he is not happy to be there. And then one of them turns up dead. And they start to realize that, oh no, they're stuck on this ship with a killer on board. And so D ends up looking into things and trying to figure out who is trying to pick them off one by one. This is a quick read. I had no problems reading it. It was easy to get through. I was intrigued by the mystery. I liked the idea of these blessings, and I wanted to know more about them because they sounded interesting, especially considering there was this secrecy behind them. D wasn't my favorite character, but I was hoping we'd see growth in him throughout the novel, because he can be a bit childish and kind of like a frat boy, and I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of that. But I was intrigued enough by the mystery, and I was hoping something clever would happen with that. And then, I guess you could say the big twist happened, and I went, oh, I do not like that. I really, really didn't like that. This felt like it was going to be maybe 3.75, and then the twist happened, I was like, okay, 2. it's going to be in the 2-star range. There's no doubt about that. And then when it kind of became clear where it was headed, I'm like, if it heads the way I think it's going to drop into the 1-star range. And I was looking at reviews because I was curious, what do other people think about this twist? And other things were pointed out to me. There were certain things I had noticed with some of the representation in this book that felt stereotypical, which I didn't like. There were certain instances of that throughout this book where there would be a character who would say something or do something or be described some way that just felt, I don't know, off for me. And it would be really, really hard to explain exactly what, because there are certain things that are spoilers, but I will mention one of the things I can say with Dee is that Dee seems to be into pretty much everybody and just seems to flip from person to person with no real care. And it just kind of felt like the stereotypical bi person who apparently just wants to sleep with everybody. And that's not a stereotype I like, because that's not true. But that's what it felt like is what they were going for. That, of course, because he likes both genders, he'd be willing to sleep with just about anybody if they gave him the right look. And I don't know, I didn't like that. And then there were other instances of that. And I just, you combine that with the twist that I really, really didn't like. And then the ending, which I hadn't even considered. Like, I read the ending and I think I was so checked out that it didn't really sink in what exactly I had read. I think it would have if I had given it time. I only finished this like an hour ago. So I think if I had given it time, it would have sank in. But I was reading a review and somebody pointed out how bad the ending looks. And I went, oh, yeah. I didn't like that. You know, you're right. That's a really, really good point. And like I said, I think I would have considered it, but I was also kind of checked out. So I'm glad I had that review to go, oh, yeah, I hadn't even considered that part yet because I was still so focused on not enjoying the twist. So I'm very sad, but I will be unhauling this gorgeous edition of Voyage of the Damned because I did not enjoy my time with it. So that was my week. Very, very interesting start to the year. No 5-star yet, but a few 4.5s, a few duds. So a very so-so kind of week. It'll be interesting to see where things go from here. But also, I believe I've finished like 12 books in 7 days. So I'm doing something right reading-wise. And like I said, I'm partway through a couple of others. So hopefully I can keep that momentum rolling into week 2. And maybe I'll find my first 5-star next week. That's going to be all for this vlog, though. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me fish emojis in honor of this gorgeous edition of a book, even though I didn't like the book. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!